Hey everyone, this is More Than Just Trucks, a podcast for gearheads, truckers, and anyone who wants to learn more about the trucking industry. This podcast is sponsored by Truck Country and Stoops-Freightliner. Come along with me as we dive deeper into what makes this $700 billion industry an essential part of all our lives. Here, we will interview industry leaders, educators, and more as we aim to inform the population on all things trucking. Hello and welcome to More Than Just Trucks podcast. I'm your host, Ray Clark, and today I have Chryssa Hunlock on the show with me. We're going to discuss what it's like to be kind of in a very male-dominant type world and industry from a woman's perspective. She's been a very long time industry leader, really, when I look back at some of her bio and the charge that she's taken up through the ranks and stuff. So make sure to sit back and listen all the way to the end. It's going to be a really good show. She's got some excellent perspective on the industry and a direction for improvement. Her and I have been conversing back and forth on some different things. And feel free to drop any suggestions to podcast@truckcountry.com. Welcome, Chryssa. How are you today?
Thanks so much, Ray. I'm doing pretty well. Happy spring.
Yes, that is the weather has broke for us. It seems like the winds and rain have passed through the region, and hopefully everybody's on the sunny side up, as they say. So let's introduce yourself a little bit. Give us a little background on kind of where you're currently at.
Sure. I am currently at Cheema Freightlines. I'm the Director of Driver Engagement and Technology. Previous to that, I spent 8 years at the OEM, so at Daimler Trucks North America, which is where you and I met. I was most recently a technical sales rep. That role is a field role where I was out for Premier Truck Group in Utah, as well as California Truck Centers in Central California. And my primary role there is to help spec the truck. So, what rear axle ratio with what horsepower with, getting real into the weeds with the technical stuff, as well as I got my CDL in that role and was charged with training drivers to use the DT12 or any of the other technology that's on the truck. And previous to that, when you and I met, I was a district service rep. So I was the first female technical sales rep for Daimler and also the first female district service rep for Freightliner. And you and I met because I came out with a group of my colleagues to look at, was it Express Write-Up, I believe?
Yeah. Yep.
Express Assessment. So yeah, you guys had set the gold standard when it comes to throughput, which is what Daimler and, all of us kind of decided to call it, right? Turnaround time. So the clock starts ticking from the moment the truck enters the property until you guys had it out the door. So I remember coming out and meeting you during that time.
Yeah, that was quite a day. It was a group of you guys, quite an entourage that come through, and I remember that well. The cool thing for me is the technical aspects that you have. So for you ladies out there that think that you cannot learn these technical aspects, don't even. It's there. She's doing it for you. She's definitely showing the path of direction to lead the charge with this for sure. I mean, a lot of guys, myself included, I wouldn't even be able to begin to know. I mean, and I know enough about it, but I wouldn't want to start speccing a truck right now and hit it on the head with making sure that I'm keeping the customers happy with the right specs.
Well, it's all about specializing, right? I think in any job, it's just a matter of really immersing yourself in whatever the topic is. So anybody can have the knowledge that I've had, just like you said, male, female, doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the race, doesn't matter. You can get the knowledge that I've had. It's just a matter of being willing to ask the questions and, look dumb, I guess, right? Being willing to be humble and say, I don't know that, and I'm going to learn it. And I really cut my teeth growing up in Michigan and, the Motor City. Everybody in Michigan, for the most part, they say that as a stereotype, but it's pretty true that most people in Michigan have someone in their family who worked for the auto industry or do themselves. So that was really where I cut my teeth, just going out to the garage with my dad and some of his friends who worked for GM and, having an interest in it.
Yeah, we talked earlier, and so as you guys don't know, the listeners, Chris and I had already previously scheduled a recording and had some technical difficulty with our Zoom recording and stuff. So this is kind of round 2/3 even going on with this one here. But we talked earlier, and this is, I think her and I really dug in deep on this subject. And I like the way she put it, that cutting her teeth with her dad back in the day, right? And we talked about how the modern families and the generations coming up now really don't have that opportunity, or I don't know if it's the work life thing that's going on or what, but as Chryssa and myself, I was fortunate enough to be born and raised into a excavating business in the family. So again, tracks, tires, engines, equipment, we did it all. And same with Chryssa, where when you're around it, it helps you kind of get an avenue open for that aspect, I think.
Yeah, it becomes a social activity too. And I mean, I think it's a Midwest thing, right? I know you're in the Midwest, and it's not just that. It's really any blue collar or salt of the earth types, that aren't afraid to get their hands dirty, or are a lot of times forced to get their hands dirty because something's broken and no one's going to come fix it for you. So fix it. But like we talked about last time, I also think not only is it the screen time, so looking at your little screen and then going home and looking at the bigger screen and then looking at the screen at work, we're both looking at a screen right now.
Yeah.
It's not only screen time. I think vehicles in general are becoming a lot less friendly for working on. In my Detroit days, it's motorcycle days too. So part of my background is building motorcycles, and then also when I worked in the oil change shops, I noticed this would have been, I don't know, 2006, 2007, and already a lot of the vehicles were a lot more difficult to work on when they would come in just for an oil change, because they started becoming hybrids. And I remember that feeling, the first hybrid that I was underneath, like hearing that hum and not wanting to die because I didn't have my wrench wrapped quite right, or didn't realize, what I was grounding. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Think of the specialty tools now that the technicians are looking at compared to a normal. Let's just go with the Craftsman toolbox, right? When some of us started out, and it was like uh, drawer full of screwdrivers, standard wrenches, sockets. Biggest you needed was 1/2 inch with a nice big breaker bar and pipe, really, right? And you were going to town on whatever you needed to do it. But yeah, the technology really has, even like you said, I mean, everybody thinks of it as and I always use the terminology, knuckle busting, dirty type, greasy job. And I'm not saying that it's not there, but it's definitely steered its way to the technology world, where they're as sophisticated and technical as much as the auto world, if not more, really, in my eyes.
Yeah, and that's really what afforded me, I don't know how to put it. It's what gave me the chance or the ability to earn the respect of all the technicians that I was working with. And my first job with the OEM was as a service engineer or a call center representative. So the technicians that couldn't get through a repair would call Detroit, the CSC, and open a ticket. And really, there's not a lot of your salty old techs out there that that I could walk through doing a valve job or something like that. But it's the after treatment, and the after treatment is becoming a lot less mysterious. But it's that new technology that they're adding to trucks and will continue to happen. As things become more fuel efficient, computers continue to take over a lot of the decisions for the driver. So much that has to do with repairing anything having to do with automotive, but especially in the truck world, so much more of it is going to have to do with computers and laptops and log files and sensors, and so much more than a wrench, which is still important, having that touch and that feel, and knowing the tricks and how to, bust something loose that's stuck. But so much more, I think, value for technicians and, the listeners out there that might be thinking about going into the field really should be thinking about, it's not just a dirty, like you said, bust your knuckles job. You can make a lot of money if you become a great diagnostics tech that can really identify the root cause, not just the symptom. Don't put a band-aid on it. We both know that good technicians are the ones that can really think for themselves and get down into the dirt and figure out what's really going on here so it doesn't come back. Don't just fix it and send it up the road for the next guy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I want to reflect. So what were some of your hurdles? Like you said, you were in that CSC, so that's that customer. So you got techs calling you, right? And how did that go over for you?
It was interesting. I mean, I had a couple that I got called sir a lot, which I kind of thought was a compliment. It still happens from time to time. It depends, the situation, but it's just happenstance when they're talking to me. They go, "Yes, sir." I mean, ma'am, it's like it's okay if you don't have to mentally separate me from the men that talk to you, we're on the level playing field, then I'm fine with that. But I actually had more trouble with the women. So like the female, a lot of times the receptionists, whom I would get when I would call. So the technician would send me a log file and the troubleshooting, and I would look through it and try to help them come to a diagnosis. And then when I would call in, I would get the receptionist and say, "Yeah, I need to talk to Eric." "Well, he can't talk to his girlfriend right now. You'll have to wait till lunch break." Like, well, I'm with Detroit. Please let me talk to him, and it was very weird feeling for me. It's almost cannibalistic feeling for me to say, listen here, because we're the same gender and I don't know. I hope that women are the first to normalize this, but it's new for everyone, right? It's new for everyone,
Yeah.
and we have to constantly remember that. And I had a chip on my shoulder back in the day, in my auto parts store and oil change shops and motorcycle days, and feeling like I need to prove myself or put someone in their place, or, get nasty or whatever you want to say, like tell them, "Hey, shut up and listen to me." But that really goes away with time and wisdom and understanding that I'm just going to take all that energy and invest it into knowledge and just go learn more and keep going. And then the person can either show me respect and listen to me or not. Take it or leave it. Do you want to fix this? We'll do it together, And again, it comes down to that specializing, but I won't lie, there's hurdles. Of course there are. It's all very new territory. And those of us who are going to do this that haven't done it before, like women, or like I said, I'm sure there's other races or genders or, whatever we can think of here, but
Right.
you don't have a choice. You're going to stick out. You're going to stick out and you have to be an example, whether you want to be an example or not. There's a lot of days I just want to go fade into the background, and it's not always an option.
Yeah, no, you honestly, I love the perspective you said in the very beginning of that was when they, said yes, yes, sir, and they corrected themselves, and you're like, hey, look, if that makes you comfortable and we're on level playing ground, that is a great perspective for you to kind of take that approach. So, nice, that's
Yeah.
good.
That
So,
that would be the ideal state. I'll just finish that out by saying, truly, that's the ideal state. I don't want to be the best. I don't want to stick out. I don't want it to be a thing. I don't want to have to talk about that I'm the first or only woman in the room. I just want to show up and do the job, and that's that.
So yeah, you touched home with me too on another subject there on your motorcycle, kind of motorcycle days, and I wanted to relive that a little bit with your conversation because honestly, I mean, you've kind of touched some very, in my eyes, and any of us motorcycle people that are avid motorcyclists and know that kind of world, you've shaken hands, rubbed elbows with some very important people.
Yeah, yeah. I got lucky in a lot of ways. I we didn't touch on this, but I went to college for trucking. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I know where you went to college.
I went to college for music, believe it or not. So yeah, I was a clarinet major in the orchestra on a scholarship. And but once I graduated, I turned around and said, "Oh yeah, how do I make money?" Which I think should resonate with a lot of your listeners if they're especially at the high school age and deciding what to do here. And then I went to Motorcycle Mechanics Institute down in Phoenix with UTI. Kind of went down there and after a couple months decided that program was a little overpriced, especially having just gone into debt for a bachelor's. So I went up to Lake Washington Tech And one of the first things they had us do for an assignment, because these are all high school kids, I mean, you had to clock in and clock out so that you're learning how to punch the clock literally.
Yep.
But which I can understand. But yeah, our first assignment was to go to a local shop and interview the shop owner. Again, these are kids, they want to make sure you really know what you're getting into here and that you'll fit in. And I got really lucky. I was living in Ballard, Seattle, which is just north of where I am now. I'm in Sumner at the moment, but I was in Ballard and I went to the shop that was literally just a couple minutes from the house I was renting. And the owner, I pulled up in the pouring rain on my old crappy Sportster that was all chopped up, and that was already my style, was to strip stuff down. And I had a really close, tight knit group of friends through high school, and afterward that we all rode together, and that was kind of our style. But I rode up there in the pouring rain, and came in to interview him, and it happened to be Steg von Heitz, who is pretty popular in the chopper world, and gave Indian Larry, him and Indian Larry kind of started out together. And as Steg would tell the story, he is the one that chained Larry to a bed to get him clean, and start out with Gasoline Alley. And yeah, English Don was a really good friend of mine. He passed away, unfortunately, but he came and stayed with me on his farewell tour, and him and Steg rebuilt, Maxine and the Babylon Taxi chopper. So they rebuilt their two most famous bikes and went on this tour. And so, yeah, it was a wild ride, literally. And I got really lucky that first shop I walked into happened to be his shop. And he said, sorry, this shouldn't be for your listeners, but screw school, just start working here. And so that's what I did. And then I worked with him, truly learning from an old school chopper legend, how to tune a bike by smell. And, I mean, all the ways you're not supposed to do things, but the ways that really come in handy when you don't have the right methods or tools, or you're on the
Yeah.
side of the road. And, always carry vice grips so that you can use it for a shifter or hold your clutch on, or, what have you. So yeah, it was a really, really wild time.
So hits another point, right? Is listening to the experienced guys and learning from them. Even though it's a very high technical uh, kind of movement that we're going into right nowadays, but how many of our senior techs, though, when a truck pulls in, can listen to it no matter what, and kind of say, oh, that's top end. Oh, that's maybe on the turbo side, or that's a bottom end noise, or you know what, that's in the drivetrain. There's something going on. Check it because it's transferring, it's resonating. So many people think that, oh, just hook a laptop to it and we'll fix it. Yep. Laptop will tell you what's going on
Yeah.
with it. And
Yeah. Run the advanced diagnostic troubleshooting and replace the coolant sensor 6 times. And yeah, exactly. I think, the future of diagnostics and troubleshooting and repairs is really going to it has to be a fusion of both of those worlds. It has to be your gamers who are good with, computers, right?
Yep.
And looking at all the sensors and multitasking, but they have to pair off with the guys who understand the feel of an engine. There is nothing that's going to replace all that experience, and like what you're talking about, the sounds and just how it feels. I mean, we know there's guys out there, and I'm sure you're one of them, and so am I, that you can feel like, oh, this bolt is frozen, or whatever's going on. So it you have to pair those people together. That's what really has to happen, because you can't lose all that wisdom and pour it all into that laptop side, but you have to have both.
Let me guess. What was your first stethoscope?
Uh, a wrench. I
A
mean, good
screwdriver with a
question.
nice big wooden handle
Oh, yeah,
usually
that too. Yeah,
was the best, right? That
yeah.
one worked real well. So yeah, you hit another talking point for me, is when you said gamer. So kind of some of my side work in, besides the training department, we do a lot of recruiting. And I think this is where you and I really hit home a lot. We know the industry needs, and we have a lot of passion to try to, and again, like you, right? I don't care, male, female, gender, race, whatever, right? We know we need people coming in here, and we don't have those, like we talked about earlier. I don't think we have those kids that are developing that mechanical aptitude from the start at home anymore. So how do we work that avenue, right? So some of my, I call it a tactic, or sales point, or however you want to look at it for the gamers. But when I'm doing a presentation, I typically stand out and say, okay, hey, look, who's our gamers in the room right now? And of course, they all want to slide in their seat. The gamers do, but they're being quickly pointed out from the gearheads. And it's like, look, this isn't to call anybody out by no means. This is to show everybody some perspective of different light to shed on a diesel technician. So I usually have a screen with multiple shots of a regen screen going up. So we've got what? Temperatures, sensors,
Pressure.
pressure sensors, voltages, multiple things going on all at once. And I relate that to a gamer having multiple things going on the screen at once, right? He's got his weapons in one corner, life's in another, whatever else, batteries. Plus, he's playing the main game right in the center of the screen. And I said, so for you to multitask and really succeed and win at that game, you really need to pay attention to everything. So if you look at that screen that I'm showing you, and we taught you how to know and understand every one of those pressure readings, every one of those sensor readings, voltages, temperatures, and you did quick math in your head and was able to know the difference between the sensors and where they should be, I said, you could probably be a very good diagnostic tech with some training. And I said, guess what? You don't even have to really get dirty if you become that good diagnostic tech anymore. You're working off your laptop 90% of the time. And it's like a light goes off and everybody's like, all of a sudden now I've got everybody's attention. Like, oh, wait a minute. You mean I can like fix a truck and not get dirty?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and make six figures, or darn near close to it, right?
Right.
Making pretty good money. And there's a huge need for diesel technicians, for drivers, for everything that's in the industry. I didn't know it until I was interviewed on a panel last week and saw the metric that only 4% of diesel technicians are women. 10% of OTR truck drivers are women, but only 4% of diesel technicians. I was pretty shocked by that. I mean, I don't know that you could make an argument one of them is more difficult or more accessible than the other. They're both pretty foreign for, the female gender, but
Yeah.
part of, playing off what you just said, part of why I think a lot of women don't get involved has so much to do with feeling like they're not capable. It's so true with the auto industry, whether you're a man or a woman, there's this weird feeling, and I've had it. I used to have it. I still have it with regard to some things, but somehow that this is knowledge that is so far beyond you that you can never have it. It's so complicated. All those sensors, like you were talking about, the pressure sensors and then you're hearing it's a DOC and it's an SCR and it's DEF and there's all these acronyms and there's all these names and it's just too much. It's too much for me to understand. So I'm never going to go there, but it's not true. It is accessible. It is consumable. It's just a matter of breaking it up into enough pieces so you understand. And that can happen for man, woman, again, doesn't matter what walk of life you're coming from. It is possible. There is a finite amount of information and you can get there. And that's definitely how I felt. Intimidated is the word, right? You're
Yeah.
intimidated by all that knowledge that you don't have. And the reason that you don't go for it is because you'll look stupid. But just go look
Well,
stupid until you don't anymore. Fake it till you
exactly. Yeah.
make it.
That's the thing is, I guess as a manager in the past, I would never exclude a lady coming into the industry because for me, my aspect, I've had several service advisors. We've got several women in our group in the company right now coming through the training groups and stuff like that. And I love to see it because they pay attention to detail. You guys don't miss a thing, really. I mean,
I think so that's true. And I hear that all the time, right? That women have a better attention to detail. But I think so much more of it has to do with what we were just talking about, too, in a way that it's a lack of ego and not being afraid to say, I don't know. I think I see it happen so often. It's not a competition, but if we're
right.
comparing, skills here, that there's so many times that if it's that electrical issue with a guy, your odds of that guy, if he's, a bunch of other guys are watching, of him getting in there and just acting like he knows what he's doing and then actually getting hurt or something happening are so much lower if it's a woman. We're statistically a lot more risk adverse, so we're not going to go take that chance, and we're going to say, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And yeah, I would just say that's another selling point, I guess you would say, for a female getting involved. I also recently learned about a new organization called Next Generation, and they told me something interesting. They paired off with this other company called, I think it's Job Behaviors, but they went to the high school that they locally work at and just administered a skills test to all the students. And it ranked quite a few females as being really gifted for driving a truck or being a technician. And he was wondering, is showing them that they're capable going to increase attendance for his class? And it actually did. It jumped from 4% to 20%.
Awesome.
Just the act of showing these women or these females or girls, in high school that they are capable is enough to actually sway them to say, well, then you know what? I am going to go for it. So that's what we need to be doing, is telling all of them, you are capable. You are more than
Yeah,
capable to get in here.
that is awesome. I never thought of that perspective of putting some mechanical aptitude tests together and, like you said, just administer it to all of them and then show them the results.
Yeah.
Um,
Show them
that
they're capable.
that's really cool. So one of the things we've got going on that note, as far as the high school, is we've recently partnered up with Dubuque Community Schools, and we're offering Diesel One class for juniors and seniors, and that's a good perspective for me to kind of move forward and try to get that door open for them. Try to get a foot in the industry and show them that there is an avenue for that. I like that perspective.
Yeah. Just show them they have what it takes, and then let them go, let them run from there.
So where do you think, you gave that 4% in just the technicians end of it. Where do you think the future's going? I mean, can we with I know you and I have talked about this, right? And how do we pair up? How do we group up? Can we turn these numbers around? Where do you see the transportation world going in general?
Well, the numbers have to go up. I think so. I've only been in trucking for a little less than a decade. People have been here for their whole lives. And that's part of what, my point is here, that so much of trucking up until I don't know when, but somewhat recently has been a family affair, meaning it's literally, you can ask, do you have someone in by the way, Ray, do you have anyone in your?
Just my dad with the excavating where we wrenched and fixed stuff. Yep.
So still blue collar, so to
Yep.
speak. But yeah, trucking has to become more mainstream. I think the pandemic did a fairly good job of putting the truckers in the limelight and, seeing them as heroes when the shelves were empty. And by the way, that's what Cheema Freightlines does, is our third largest customer is toilet paper. So we
Thank you.
literally were, yeah, exactly. I
Thank you,
wasn't there
Chima.
at the time, but yes, thank you, Cheema, for literally restocking the shelves with toilet paper. But that was one of the first times that I think the mass public went, oh crap, you mean this stuff just doesn't magically appear, right? And there's so much involvement in trucking in the average consumer's life that we have to everyone in the industry has to be doing their part to try to get more people, kids especially, involved. And, I said it earlier, but thanks for what you guys are doing. I said it to the Next Generation crew too, that asked me to make a video of my background, kind of to use as a mentor as well. Thanks for what you guys are doing, because you're planting the seeds. And I don't think the seed planters get a thank you until there's a harvest, but that's what has to happen. And it's kind of silently happening there's a lot of you out there that are doing things like this, that are recognizing the need. And that's what I think really has to happen. I would love to see, there's Lincoln MKZ commercials with Matthew McConaughey. Let's go get, Johnny Depp to make some trucking commercials,
There you go.
whoever, Willie Nelson, whoever, to make some trucking commercials, whether it's Freightliner or, just trucking in general. We have to get this in front of the average consumer, and especially the kids, so that they'll get an involvement. And I always point out when I go into the high schools or career days or wherever I'm talking about it, do you want a pandemic proof or, recession proof job? Get into trucking.
Yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we literally never sat still during, even on the training side. I mean, um, we wanted to hit the ground running when everything opened back up again. So it was nice to see that we had we were there for the support of the tech still, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just, like everybody else, had to learn and adapt to virtual training, and you've probably been involved in that, right? How do you virtually train a hands-on type skill set? I mean, you can't, I don't care how many simulators you have, you can't give a CDL license to somebody until they sit in a seat and actually drive that vehicle.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. One of the things that I did not mention that I wanted to bring up is it looks like you do some volunteer work too. You are a busy girl. I mean, how do you keep the time going to stay on top of everything?
It's kind of one of those, I don't know, snowball things. The doors keep opening, and I don't say no. I get a lot of value and purpose out of doing the volunteer stuff like this, regular work stuff. I mean, that's another cool thing about working in the trucking industry is that there's always a higher purpose. I'm not just lining some greedy person's pocket. I'm putting stuff back on the shelves in stores. But yeah, the volunteer work, it's other stuff that's fallen in my lap. So, most recently I was just doing spring cleaning and was looking for somewhere to donate goods, which can get tricky during COVID times too. Who's accepting things right now? And there happened to be a clothing drive. And when I went to donate my clothes, I found out it's an organization called Building Beyond the Walls that was focused on trying to teach communities construction work. And in particular, because of the month, they were focusing on teaching women construction work and girls. And so I had to get involved. Here's my information. Let's talk. So I'll trade my wrench for a circular saw and go out there and lend my hand in helping with some building skills. So yeah, I just can't help myself. I don't say no when I see a need and see something cool to get involved in.
Nice. Well, again, thank you, Chryssa. So we've got Chryssa from clarinet to breaker bar. What would the words of wisdom be for any of the ladies, young ladies out there looking to get in the industry?
My words of wisdom are don't don't question yourself and build your, I call it, your cabinet of confidence, or put people around you that tell you can do whatever it is you want to do, and then do the work to get there. The most important piece being don't be afraid to ask the questions and put in the time and just keep studying. And, if people piss you off or, make you angry saying you can't do something, that's when you double down and you just go learn more until you can go in there and, not have the chip on your shoulder anymore and just say, do you want my knowledge or not? Definitely have it and I'm ready to share it with you.
Yeah, prove them otherwise, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening on the show today to More Than Just Trucks podcast, sponsored by Truck Country Stoops. We are one of the largest Freightliners owned and operated dealerships in the United States today. Check us out for all your parts, sales, and service needs. We are customer driven. Again, sponsored by Truck Country Stoops. Also, I need to throw out a quick little open invitation. We have a couple of positions open at our training centers. Dubuque, Iowa, and Indianapolis both have open seats for dealer trainers. So apply today at truckcountry.com on our careers tab. And again, Chryssa, thank you very much. Enjoy talking with you as always. Keep up the passion, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thanks so much, Ray. Go get that bike out, huh? It's
Yeah,
motorcycle season.
it is.